Christianity is nearly extinct in the Middle East, where, of course, it was born, but a few a legitimately brave man.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you. We'll be watching. Christianity is nearly extinct in the Middle East, where, of course, it was born, but a few million believers still struggle to preserve their way of life. One of the largest surviving communities of Christians is in Syria, but they could find themselves targeted even more than they already are by Islamists if President Bashar Al Assad falls from power, as many in Washington are hoping he does. We spoke about this with Nina Shea of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute. Here's our conversation. Nina, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
And thank you for caring about this, since nobody else does. So that's my first question. Why does nobody care? Syria, whatever you think of Assad, there's a lot of Christians in Syria. Like, why? Where's our concern for them?
Yeah, well, they're part of a bigger conflict. So I think because they are a minority, they get lost.
Yes.
But they're extremely important, both to the church. This is an ancient community that traces its roots to the very beginnings of Christianity, Paul in Syria, for example.
Yes.
And they're also important for the region, because they're modernizers. They have, this Christian community has brought modern education to Syria and the broader Middle East, modern medicine and hospitals, and also women's equality principles. There is no guardianship restrictions for these women. There's no issue about them driving. There's equal inheritance rights in the Christian tradition there. There's equal testimony in courts. They don't need their husbands or their guardian, their younger brother's permission to go to the hospital.
They're liberalizers in the best sense. You really see this when you go to Lebanon. The Christians are a force for liberalization in the best sense of that. So why wouldn't this be a concern of the United States? Because we want that. It
really should be, because also it's important to understand in context that Syria and Iraq, which, Syria, the Christians are down about 2/3 now, according to church reports. Iraq, it's over 80%. They have plummeted since the beginning of this century because of ISIS and because of conflict.
So I assume we're letting a lot of Syrian Christians into this country, right?
Wrong. Under Obama, with the expanded Syrian refugee program, the UNHCR referred to us 1% of the refugees were Christian. They formed 10% of the population of Syria. So it was disproportionately very, very low. So we're discriminating
against Christians in the refugee population.
Yeah, and it goes on to it carries over to the humanitarian aid. We gave $2 billion, Tucker, in aid to Iraq since ISIS. And about zero of it went to the Archdiocese of Erbil, the Chaldean Catholic Archdiocese of Erbil, which cared for most of the Christians that fled ISIS and were displaced.
So upsetting. In our final seconds, if our viewers want to help in some way, is there a responsible way to do that you're aware of?
Well, there are groups like the Knights of Columbus or Samaritan's Purse, or Aid to the Church in Need, that are giving direct aid. Vice President Pence has made a policy change as of fall for our aid now, to half of our aid to be going directly to these minorities, to Christians and Yazidis in the region. And that is good. The funds are slow in moving, but the policy has begun to change.
Well, good for Pence, and good for you for following this and bringing us that. Nina Shea, thank you from Hudson.